Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the opening of the academic year. My name is Florentine Friedrich, and I'm honored to be your host today. To welcome you on behalf of Maastricht University and to share his thoughts on the need for European universities, I'd like to introduce the chair of the Worldwide Universities Network, the vice chair of the Young European Universities Network, and of course, our president, Martin Pol.
Thank you, Florentine, and thank you for coming. Of course, I want to first welcome our special guests, and you all are special, of course, but forgive me to name some of them. I welcome the governor of the province of Limburg, Theo Bovens, of course, our main speaker, the first vice president of the European Commission, and our honorary doctor, Frans Timmermans. Our discussants of today, Kate Robertson, Dag Rune-Olsen, and Joost van den Akker. I also would like to welcome Annemie Penderstrake, who just told me that she's an ambassador for Sustainable Development Goals. I think it's your topic today. And of course, I've seen many mayors and aldermen from Maastricht, from other cities in this, may I call it, Brightlands region. Welcome. Also, of course, our colleagues from other universities and institutions of higher education that our guests are today from Limburg and from over the border. And last not least, of course, our staff, our students, our alumni, and the representatives of the participatory and supervisory bodies of Maastricht University. As I said, you all are very special and specially welcome here. Now, if you look at the papers today and the last few days, there's many articles about universities in the Netherlands, some of them critical, some of them focusing on day-to-day problems that we face. And we also are engaged in these discussions. Think about work overload, about the story of the international students, about language. And of course, we are involved in this discussion within our university and outside. However, today, because I believe that we also as a university need to have some goals and visions to share, where we want to go in the future and why we are on the earth, we have deliberately chosen a topic that's very close to our heart, that is part of our strategic program, and that we want to really dedicate it this day to. So forgive me, I will give a short introduction because I said Frans Timmermans is an excellent speaker. I almost feel like I have to play the banjo before the Rolling Stones come on the stage. But I thought it would be good to make just a few comments on why this is our topic today, European universities and their responsibility for sustainable development. It's actually a theme that's not really new. It's a theme that goes back, if I look at the history of the universities, and as you know, universities that we know today are really a European invention. If you go back to the 10th and 11th century, the first universities were formed, and it was exactly 800 years before I was born, in 1158, that the University of Bologna adapted a special document called the Constitutio Habita, which was actually a letter written by the emperor at that time, Frederick I, also known as Barbarossa, emperor of the Holy Roman Empire of a German nation, which allowed scholars from universities to be mobile. Why was mobility important? Because if you are a scholar, if you are a university, you need to exchange your ideas with your peers. And in those days, of course, universities were spread all over Europe. They need to travel. And this document provided free travel conditions for these scholars, that they would be only judged by their own, that they could really talk to their peers, and really it was the basis of academic freedom for uninhabited academic life in a European context. And maybe over the centuries, with all the European wars, with the developments of the national state, we have forgotten that this was really the basis of movement, mobility, exchange, peer-to-peer interactions that characterized the early university. Well, many hundred years later, actually the French president, Emmanuel Macron, in 2017 gave a speech at the Sorbonne where he called again for an idea about European universities that is actually quite similar to these early developments, because he asked the question, shouldn't there be really European universities, European university associations that are dedicated to the spirit of mobility, to the spirit of exchange, for a common Europe, for the citizens of Europe. And this idea has been called on. The European Commission has actually made a call for these associations to really submit ideas, a contest of ideas, if you want to say, so to really develop this idea further. And I can tell you, and I will come back later to that, that we also will participate in this competition with a number of partner universities, young universities, with some fresh ideas how this European university networks in the future could look like. Now, why and what has this to do with sustainable development? The Sustainable Development Goal 17 that we discussed this morning are really a key element that has been also determined by the United Nations, that are topics that we should investigate, that we should discuss, that we should be interested in if we want to make a sustainable planet and a sustainable society. And I think they are also very good themes for European universities to be dealing with. Because these Sustainable Development Goals, of course, they are about sustainable energy and waste reduction, but they're also about education, human rights, network creation, having a clean and sustainable planet, are something where we as universities can engage, not only with our partner institutions in Europe and beyond, but also with many other players in society, with our cities, with our countries, internationally in our networks, and we can engage. And this is very important for universities today. So that's why we have also in our European efforts chosen this topic. And if you look at our university, some of you were probably here this morning where we had a great seminar to showcase some of our own ideas by our students and staff, shown that we are already on this way. Sustainability and sustainable development goals are a topic in our agenda, in our strategic program, and also in our Sustainability Plan 2030 that we try to fill in over the next years. So this is also the topic today, how we're doing this. What's engagement mean, and what does it mean for a university located here in Maastricht, in Limburg, in the heart of Europe? If you look at what we have done in the last years, we have really implemented many ideas in operations, in education and research, and I'm not, again, addressing the controversial topic of waste paper basket. We already had this discussion this morning. But also the fact that when we expand and we build new buildings, such as on the Tapayan campus, we will implement the so-called well-building standard, and we will create groups, interactions, living labs, educational programs that deal with this issue in an interdisciplinary way. And it's also, as I said, something that's not really restricted to the world or some abstract idea. It is really, sustainability starts at our doorstep. As one of my predecessors says, our target country number one is the city of Maastricht. Problems that play in our region are also problems that are relevant in Europe. They're also relevant in the world. It's really the link between local issues, global developments, and vice versa, that are really addressing this issue and that we need to put in the focus. And as you know, that we are planning also a broad bachelor program in global studies that will address these issues. And I think the international classroom and the action that we have in our spirit really is an excellent platform to put this together. So I think we have done already a good step, but there are still many steps to go until we reach the year 2030, where we really want to be an entirely sustainability university without a footprint, ecological footprint, but also where we live these ideas. So that is also my message, my short message today, what it means to be a university dedicated to SDGs in Europe, in the Netherlands, in Limburg, in Maastricht. First of all, of course, you need to embrace this idea that sustainability and sustainable development goals are important for a university. And as I said, we do that. Secondly, you have to be committed to high-quality education and learning, to contribute to forge responsible citizens and engage the community inside and outside university. Third, you also have to educate these individuals that will act every day with the awareness that their ethics and work and social relationship matters, that their actions can make the difference in the ecosystem they are part of. Show the commitment to sustainability also in the broader sense, which means commitment to evidence and to the fostering of evidence-based policies and systems. So it means not depending on alternative facts and fake news. Support the exchange, and I come back to the idea of 850 years ago and President Macron. Support exchange between peers, students, staff, professors, to help them to learn from others in our neighborhood across the border and help them in their professional development so they can give something back as citizens to their community, to their nation, and to Europe. As universities today, we need, and we shouldn't fall, we need to realize that we shouldn't fall in the so-called elitism trap, because many of our critics say you are the elite and you are educating the elite. I think this is completely the wrong statement. I think universities are really in the middle of society. They need to act with their environment and they need to contribute because we provide something very important for our societies. We educate the people, some say the leaders, but also the citizens of the future, which have to take responsibility for our ecosystem. And when some of us retired, also provide for a good future and a good, I would say, retirement for us. But that's too egoistic, I apologize. But we need to step as universities out of our comfort zone and really engage. And this, I think, is the message today. And we engage, and you notice that it is not an elderly man that opened this ceremony today. We have Florentin Friedrich, an alumni student from University College of Maastricht, because we think if you take these discussions, you should also put those in the lead that are responsible for this future. And these are the students. We call this the Maastricht generation. These are not only students from our university. These are students all over Europe, which are born after 1991 and 92, who have never experienced a Europe with borders. And they have great ideas, I think, that we should follow. So the network that we have formed with 6 other young universities called UFE, Young Universities for the Future of Europe, does exactly that. We want to create an association of universities that goes back to the traditions of several hundred years ago, but also looks in our joint future in Europe, the challenges that we have, the threats to freedom, but also the exchange of our peers. And this platform will be dedicated to the idea that was created 850 years ago, to mobility, to freedom of thought, freedom of speech, but also to freedom of movement. So this is going to be our pitch, and we'll be very interested to see how we do in this environment. Of course, there are many competitors, but as I said, it's a competition of ideas, and we will put this idea forward, and I'm sure you will hear of this in the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, Maastricht, Brightlands, the EU region, and beyond, we believe that we have a special responsibility for the European history, the European tradition, with our own identity, and together with our partners in our close proximity, further away, we can make happen by linking our commitment of sustainable development goals, to a new idea about the future of Europe and how we interact in our ecosystem, which is still on this continent. This is all what I have to say, and it's my great pleasure now to introduce Franz Timmermann. As I said, I take my banjo and go back to my seat, and he will, of course, also put this in a much broader perspective. Thank you very much. Nice that you are here. Franz, the stage is